My name is Tamara Caulder Richardson, and I've had 6 near-death experiences. And after an after effect, I see spirit people. And now I am in the British style of evidential mediumship trained medium. I also am a channeler, and I can explain what that is. And I have my own podcast called Seeking Heaven, the Near-Death Experience and Other Phenomena. And so I'm just happy to be here. So thanks for asking me, Darren.
Great, thanks, Tamara. Yeah, and I was on your podcast just half an hour ago.
I know, it's great.
Just doing one for each of us, one after another, which is nice. So yeah, go and check that out. I'll put a link to your podcast in the description to this one. So I suppose let's begin with, let's go in order. We'll start with your 6 near-death experiences and then move on to the after effects, sort of your mediumship and things like that. So your 6 is a lot of near-death experiences to have. How did that happen? When did that start?
Yeah. Well, okay. So the first one, I didn't really know it was a near-death experience. I didn't really realize that. I didn't know what it was. And I didn't have recall of some of these things till later in life. Okay. And I think it's because they were surrounded by trauma, and I'll explain that. But I had what would be NPMH Atwater's book, Forever Angels. It's called a prenatal. I didn't even know they existed, but I do recall being, I just have memory from way back, but being a baby, not really a baby. I was like a spirit person, and I was not almost carried through in life. My mom, without going into it, had trauma having a kid because she was so young. And so I remember seeing this whole situation. It was just horrible. And where she's bleeding, she's in the bathroom. And I just remember complete love and compassion. And for her, I didn't really think about me, but I could see different scenarios. I've also heard the whole conversation and all of that. So that's kind of a strange thing. What do you do with that information? And then the second one, which I consider, this more, I guess, your traditional NDE, is that I was playing hide and seek with a cousin of mine in a really big, older Victorian looking home.
Mm-hmm.
And they were downstairs, they were counting, before they come. I was upstairs, and I was looking for a place to hide. And I was squealing like I didn't know where to hide. And I was jumping up and down. I had a lot of energy, and under the dresser, and I don't know why, was a nail hammered under the dresser, and it was a nail head in, and so as I'm jumping, it pierced my skull. I mean, and so I didn't know what it was. Okay. I thought there was a cup of water or something on there that fell on my head, because all this, it was blood. And it happened so fast. I didn't know. Yeah, I was jumping really hard to cram a nail through my skull.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it was doing there, because it was like a nice home. So I have no idea. And so I fell down, and I just kind of popped. I was outside of my body, and I'm looking, just kind of observing, kind of indifferent, honestly, very indifferent. And I'm just looking at the situation, and she runs upstairs, my cousin, she screams, she calls for, the adults in the house, her mom, my mom, and then it was my uncle's wife and his mother-in-law. She came upstairs, and I'm seeing all of this from different directions. I'm seeing it in the room. I'm not feeling any pain because I'm outside of the body. I'm seeing all through different parts of the house at the same time. I'm seeing all these beings of light go up the stairwell, and they seemed friendly, but I didn't know who they were. And I felt like they were coming there for me. And then I heard this, it wasn't really like a voice you would hear. It was like, but it was also a knowingness. And it was, it was like every part of my fiber, like I wouldn't argue with it. And I can't tell you how I know this, but I believe it to be God. I was so young. I didn't really know anything about religion or anything like that. I just knew, it was like an order, and it says, this is not your time. You have much to do. And so I'm back in the body. And then it was really painful. I was disoriented. I was bleeding. I was confused. And so I lost consciousness again. I'm outside the body, and I'm seeing it look like a 9-foot being that had hands over my head. I felt they were my guardian angel. And why do I feel that way? I don't know. I just do, but they didn't feel human to me. I did not see the wings. They were just light. And I always knew this being, or if you want to call it an angel, and I'm not going to define what people think. It could be the angel, but I didn't see the wings. Okay. But I always knew later on in life, I called them Uriel, but I didn't know that was an archangel. Like I didn't even know that. And so I was all around. I was in the house all at the same time. I was also outside at the same time. And I'm observing, and I'll go back and check on my body, but honestly, I was very indifferent. I was more like I'm studying things and I'm observing what they're saying. And so what ended up, my grandparents came and took me to an internist, and they said I had a contusion. And so I had a hole in my head. So literally for 2 years, literally, if people go, oh, well, you got a hole in your head, I'll be like, yes, I do.
Yes. Yeah.
2 years, I had to wait for it to grow back. Like it was a soft spot, like babies have. I mean, you can't do anything. The skull has to grow back on its own.
Back around it. Yeah.
Back around it. And that was at that point on, I started seeing spirit people, but I didn't know they were spirit people. I thought they were just people.
Mm-hmm.
But what was a clue is I would say things, and then it would be like, you didn't see that. I'm like, I didn't. And so I could tell that I wasn't getting positive feedback from my family when I would see things. Plus, I didn't understand what people were coming in to say, hey, to me in my bedroom, even though they were friendly. And I love talking to people. So, I was talking to them. I was like, hey, but apparently, I guess they thought it was my imagination, and I was so young, I didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
And then when I was 4, my mom was dating. Well, she was single. She had me, and I was, it was at the time it was bad. It was bad. It was winter, and it had just snowed, and it was icy and cold outside. And she liked this guy, and he ended up being my stepdad, but he was a disc jockey at a radio station. And my grandparents didn't like him right off because he was cocky, flashy, all of these things. They didn't particularly like him. And so she wanted me to get to know and meet him. And so my grandmother didn't really want us to go because the weather was bad, and we were supposed to go for like a lunch and spend time with him for me to get to know him. So he picked us up, and we went down this long stairs and got in the car, and it was like he had like I don't know, it was like back a Pontiac, a gold Pontiac, and back at that time. And now look back on it, like, why didn't he go up to the door and properly pick her up at the door? Now I'm looking back like, why did we have to walk down the stairs? Why did he come get her? Anyway, it's little stupid things like that come up. But I remember we ate at Pizza Hut. We had pizza, and then we got ice cream. Why? I don't know, because it was cold, but we had ice cream. And then we went to his radio station. And so they went to have a private conversation. She had, because I could hear them. I not at that moment hear them talk, but they were talking before in the car. And she wanted to get married. He wanted to have more money. He wasn't ready yet. She really wanted to get away from her parents. And so they put me in a room and said, oh, you can look through all these, albums and stuff, and you can have whatever you want. We'll be back. So about an hour and a half later, they came back. They're arguing. And so when we get in the car, and there's really no one out because the weather's bad. It's still during the day, but no one's out because it's icy and snowy.
Mm-hmm.
He puts on the brakes because he's angry. So he did this on purpose. And I wasn't in a car seat. This is
Right.
before car seats. I wasn't in a car seat. So when they spun around, it hit a tree that was a park in front, and it landed into a big tree on the driver's side. So it kind of wrapped around on the driver's side on his side. But with me, I was a little person. I went through the windshield. And when that happened, I don't remember the pain of the impact. I just remember being cold and it being dark, and I was in this black, it was all black everywhere and dark, and I was confused because I couldn't, I couldn't feel my body. So normally when people look for their body, they look down, look at their hands. And so I'm like, where's my hands and feet? Like, I was very confused because I could totally think like I could think now. So I didn't understand where they were. And then that darkness started turning into the sensation of what felt like a tunnel, which I think was probably a portal, because that makes sense. Why would you have a tunnel? But anyway, it felt like the sensation of, so I'm in some trans-dimensional, I don't know what. And so I'm in this place, and then at the very end, I see somebody coming closer, and it was Jesus, and he had the marks in his hands. He's coming out toward me, and his hair was blowing back like the wind or a fan. He kind of had this kind of look, and he had people behind him. I knew that I knew them. They were family, but I didn't know them. It's strange, but I knew I was related to them, and I knew, but I didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
But they seemed to know who I was. And there was the year before, there was a little egg out that I had accidentally, I thought it was a ball and put it on the ground. It was a bird. And that really upset me that I didn't know it was a bird, that I killed a bird. And so one thing I remember in this, it was a small thing, but someone yelled out, and I don't know who, because there was like a group behind him, but he said, "We got your bird's okay." And I was like, I thought that was great, because that really bothered me. And so he didn't say a lot. He just said, you have to go back. And then I started thinking, it was almost as though I knew I had like some really horrible things ahead of me. Like I knew that, and I didn't want to go back. And I said, I don't know and then I kind of changed my mind. Like, I don't want to go back. And he said, I didn't have a choice. He said, you can, and you will. Like, he was serious. He said, you can, and you will. And he goes, oh, but I'll always be with you. I'm like trying to soften the blow, and so all I know is I'm back. But what's strange is I'm not back in my body. I'm kind of everywhere again. I'm in the body, but I'm also bilocational. I'm in the car, but then I'm also outside. And this is what I see. I'm seeing things with spirit eyes. I mean, it's hard to have the right words for these things. They weren't normal eyes, because I'm looking across where it's icy and snowy, and across in the park, which is snowed over. And it was a Native American man and woman. She was holding the baby, and he was cooking fish over a grill. Well, that probably was not happening. Is it a different time period layered on top of now? Is it a memory from the past that's happened there? I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't know. All I can tell you is what I saw. I saw a lady that had a high-waisted dress, long skirt, like a Gibson girl. And she's in the park with a guy with a flat hat, like a campaign hat, back in the 1800s, and they're walking. And then I saw a hot air balloon in the sky. So I tapped into something. I don't know if it was another reality, as something in the past, something that's happening at the same time. I didn't really understand. It wasn't really, human eyes couldn't see that. I was in between these states. And then I looked to the left, and I saw, in what should be normal reality, these good old boys pulling with chains the front of the tire away from the tree, getting it out. And they had it was a old timey Jeep, like a Wagoneer, and they were pulling it out, and really didn't see anyone else out there, just these two guys. And then I looked behind it, and there was a old fire station. I mean, it was still functional, but no one was there. But I saw about 200-300. They were spirit people. But they seemed really friendly, like, they might have been nice people in life when they were alive. I mean, there wasn't anybody creepy. They looked like at some point they were a normal person, but they weren't dressed modern. They were dressed like old timey firemen. And then I saw people dressed in different time periods. And one lady she looked like the 1930s or 40s, and she had a little pillbox hat on her head, and short curly hair. And she came around to the car, and she leaned in like no one could see her but me. And I mean, maybe that should be a shock, but I just had a trauma going through a windshield. So, I mean, it's like, because
nothing shocked you at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just, it's all shocking. And so my mom's holding me in the arms, but I'm kind of like, all this stuff's going on. And she said, "Oh yeah. Your grandmother used to go to my mother's jewelry store in town. Hi, I'm Judith Hefner." This is crazy. And then I heard whispers, "She's the one who carries her voice. She's the one who carries her voice." And they were like really excited to meet me, and they were concerned, and they were like really nice, and they were very polite. And then over to the right, it looked like a rip. It looked like a rip in time. And the closest that I've seen it, and then Uriel, that angel person, was very fiery with very bright oranges. And then that rip in the universe, it looked like a portal, like a God portal. Okay. I've never seen it, except I will tell you, and I told him the same thing. David Ditchfield, that he did a painting where it's like a rip with fire and orange, but I don't want to tell people, or I haven't in the past, because it looks scary, but it really wasn't scary. It wasn't scary, but it was powerful, but it looked like a God portal. I don't know what that was. I saw that. And so eventually my face was, my nose was broken in multiple places. And then as an adult, I ended up having 2 surgeries in my 20s to remove cartilage, because there was so much in there.
Right.
And 2 surgeries to remove cartilage, because my face was shattered. Although it's amazing, because I don't look like my face was shattered. I don't look like that. No. And it's just a miracle. And that's, again, another head injury. So this is like head injury. Okay. First one was a head injury, which I didn't go into that too much. The second one was head injury. This is a head injury. So duh. I mean, it's obviously no wonder I could see spirit people. I mean, it's just the head area. And then the other one was, my mom ended up being with this man, right? And they never took me back to my grandparents. So after that day, I went with them. My grandparents had a nice home. They had like a 10,000 square foot home. We went back to his trailer, or what do you call it, a caravan in the UK?
Yeah, it'd be a caravan over here. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a good thing. Okay. It was not a good thing for me. And so I'm eating, instead of, nice quality meals every day, I'm eating hot dogs. So, and I never got medical treatment till as an adult. I never got medical treatment. And so at this point, I'm trying to think of ways to get away from the trailer. I actually imagined, there was a commercial on TV where these little cartoons were marching in town. And so I visualized they were my buddies, and they were going to walk me out of this place. So I asked to show me how to get out of there. So I remote viewed. I didn't know how to call or use a phone, but I picked up the phone and called my grandparents, which I didn't even know what their phone number was. I was told that. And I told them 20 some minutes away how to get there. I'm only 4 years old. Everybody's like, "How did you do that?" I didn't. I remote viewed, and I had my guides, my spirit friends, help me, and they told me. And so, but I ended up having to stay with my mom. And it was the next year that it was just bad. Sexual abuse, it was horrible. Started when she met him at 3.5, and then when we left the next year at 5, it was going on really intensely. And like, I would hide in the closet. I would try to hide under the bed. I mean, I had no one to talk to. I was terrified. I didn't know what this was. I didn't know what, I just knew it wasn't good.
Yeah.
And I knew grandmother talked about Jesus, like you can trust him, like he's your go-to guy, but I never really had a church upbringing. And so I would talk to Jesus, which I still do, which is funny and ironic. He just acts like a normal person to me. And I don't mean that to disrespect anyone's, but he does. But I said, look, you need to kill him. I said, because this has to stop. I didn't know killing was bad. I said, you really need to kill him because I can't do this anymore. And then I started feeling like, wow, maybe that might be the wrong thing. I didn't know it was bad to say. I said, look, not a problem. Just get me out of here. Just kill me. I can do it. Just take me. I can't stand it anymore. I can't live this life. I can't do it. And I try to tell my mom, I would say, don't leave me alone with them. I'm afraid, whatever, none of that. And so I was taken 3.5 hours away from my grandparents, which that was my mentors, and they're my protectors, they're my guardians. And so after quite a bit of sexual abuse and so forth, and I got strep throat that went into pneumonia. And I remember laying on the sofa. I remember what it felt like. It was like a really cheesy gold fuzzy sofa, but I remember what was on TV, the hour, what it was like, what it looked like, how I was looking outside, and I was drifting away. I remember feeling drifting away, and I was so depressed. I was okay with that because I couldn't do this anymore, whatever this was. And so at that point, my mom, they didn't have emergency places like they do now. So you'd have to go to the hospital or to your local doctor. And so she called the hospital. They said, because my temperature was 103.9, something like this. It was very high. And so it got higher. And said, put me in a tub of ice. And I do remember that when you're freezing, I was freezing. You don't want to be in a tub of ice. I remember that. That was awful. And so to bring down the temperature, so she did that. She tried to feed me. I'm like, my lungs were shutting down.
Yeah.
She didn't know better.
Yeah,
she didn't know better. She didn't know. And so she put me in the bed. She checked back in an hour. I was totally drenched. I was soaking wet. I was really out of consciousness, in and out of consciousness at that point. And so she kept trying to get my stepdad, who was adopting me, to take us to the hospital. We don't have the money, which my grandparents did. So that really wasn't a problem. He was just being difficult again. And so eventually, when she picked me up, I was going limp. She says, we're going now. So we get at that point, that was the same day that Martin Luther King was assassinated. And here I am in the South. With the time we're living in Raleigh, North Carolina in the USA. And you're not supposed to go anywhere because there's National Guards. I mean, you're not supposed to leave. Use a curfew. But he has this radio car with its insignia on it. And so we get in that. And as we're driving along, I die. I was dead. They clocked me as 15 minutes dead on arrival. I died. I just drifted, and I was following my body above the car, and then I would come back in and look at stuff. And she, at this point, when I died, she just knew I wasn't responsive and I wasn't breathing. She started cussing him. That was her response. She was mad. And so we get to the first stop with the guards, and the guard said, why are you out? And she goes, he said, oh, my daughter, even though I wasn't his daughter at the time, but whatever, said, needs to get to the hospital. So they actually called ahead. So the other security guard stops.
Would let you through.
They just waved me right through, and the hospital was waiting. And so they had, I don't know, about a dozen people waiting to pull me in. And I remember seeing all the stuff in the room they took me to, all these medical things that they talked about. And what's interesting, I guess I should pause and say this. My mother never told me this. She just said I had strep throat and I went to like a little emergency doctor. She didn't tell me I died. She didn't tell me any of this stuff. And I actually approached her a couple of years ago. She goes, how do you know this? I went, I remember. But I mean, but a lot of parents don't want kids to know certain things because it might fall back on them.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they don't, it's their little secret. They don't want, or, you know, they just something they prefer not to talk about. So, but I do remember all the things that they were saying, and they would check because they kept trying to get my vitals. And this went on for a couple hours, and they kept checking, and there was 2 male doctors, and then there was, several nurses. They would come in and out. So like 6 to 8 female nurses, but there was 2 male doctors, and one of them would go out and tell my mom, we're trying to get her vitals. I don't think she knew what that meant. I mean, I was like flatlining, they bring me back, flatlining, bring me back. And she was like, okay. And so I'm like zooming through the hospital, and I'll go back and I'll look at my body, and I see them pumping out like goop and fluids that look like this accordion thing. And I'm like, oh, that's gross. So I don't want to stay in there. So I'm zooming around, and I'm seeing people leave their bodies and stuff in hospitals, you know, it's kind of known for that, you know? And so I'm like saying hey to people like, hey, how's it going? You know, no, death does not stop me from being very social. And then one lady, she was giving birth to a little girl, and she was dying. I said, you got to hold in there for your little girl. You got to be there. And then some old guy, he had, because it was 2 hours. I mean, I had a lot to do, and his glass of water was empty. So I knocked it off so the nurse would get him more. And then I thought, oh my gosh, this is my purpose. I think I'm an angel. This is my purpose. So I really liked the state. I kind of wanted to stay in it. And I didn't really associate it with death. There was a little girl that could see me. There was a little girl, and she had a brownie outfit on. She could see me. She's a little African-American girl. And she talked to me. She could see me. She could see me. And so I went back, and then eventually it was very sad in there. And there was a spirit, nun and priest that was standing there. And because I could tell they had the rosary, like I knew what that was, even though we weren't Catholic, I knew what that was. And so my grandmother's Presbyterian, but my mom, we never went to church or anything like that. But the woman goes, blessed are the innocent. And they were praying for me. So it's like they were spirit people praying for me, which is so beautiful. I mean, I guess they took their job seriously. It was about 2 or 3 years ago. I actually looked at the hospital, Rex Hospital, and before the new building, it used to be a Catholic hospital. So I thought it was kind of cool. So they must take their job very seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. I can't explain it any other way. And then the part that really upset me, and I don't know why, but it just did. I don't know why, but they covered me with a sheet. I mean, that was, it's kind of final. And then at some point somebody noticed there was some activity. In the meantime, it's because I had a very shallow, my lungs had collapsed, but they eventually put me in a induced coma for 3 days, and they weren't sure if I would make it or not. I remember waking up and I was in this plastic kind of thing, but for 3 days I spent it with Jesus, and I got to ask him everything. I told him I could not do this world. I said, I can't do it. I'm not going back. That's what I told him. So I did argue with him. And so, but how that happened is I go back to the room and I'm seeing this, and next thing you know, I'm in this, it's a field. It's very pretty grass. It's like a really pretty day. We're outdoors. We're in this place. It just looks beautiful. And there's kids playing to the left on a roundabout. And it just looks like a beautiful big open park. And then there's this man that's kneeling, and he's holding my right hand, and he's smiling. I remember he had this beautiful smile and really good teeth, and it was radiating, like a light source was radiating out of him. And I said, "You're that man I talked to, the one I talked to him about, like, I can't do this anymore."
Yeah.
And he thought that was funny. He goes, "I am." And so he said, "I have something to give you." And I'm 5 years old. So I said, "A toy." And he thought that was funny. He goes, "No." And so he took off a part of it looked like a rope belt. And he was very glowy, by the way. He had this light source, very glowy. And although it looked like a place like Earth, but just really pretty, like a perfect day. And he took off this part of his twine, and he wrapped it around my left wrist. And he said, "I wrap you in my protection and love. Much is given, much shall give. Through the small things, the big things would be acknowledged. And through the small things, the big things would be done." And then he said, "You have to go back." And I said, "They're here. These are kids." I'm like, "Why can't I stay?" And he said, "No, you need to go back because your mother needs you." I'm like, "You know what? She'll be fine." And he said, I did. I argued. I wasn't mean about it, but I did argue for quite a bit. And I said, "I can't do that. I can't do that. I don't want to do it." And he said, "You need to show her love." And I'm like, "I don't know how." And he said, "Well, there's no right way or wrong way to do that, but you've got more love in you than she does for herself." And what I didn't realize years later, I probably would have told him no, is that that's not as simple as I thought it was, because basically I had to learn to love Mom. She doesn't have a lot of love for herself the way that she should, but despite the fact she knew I was being abused. That's a tough one. Yeah, he gave me a tough
difficult one. Yeah.
It wasn't that easy a task. He didn't say all that. And so anyhow, he did say, "I would give you one person," which I know that to be my husband. I met him really young, but I think I'm like a puppy, so I wasn't damaged. He got me before I was too messed up. And because he was very kind-hearted and genuine person, and I needed that.
Exactly what you needed. Yeah.
I needed a kind person, just really true blue, decent, And so we walked around in the field, and as we walked, the blades of grass, each blades of grass, like it had life in it, and it was like whispering, almost like I don't know, like acknowledging him. And then there were flowers, and each petal had life, and there was a really big tree, and everything just kind of leaned toward him. Even the clouds would follow him. And I was sitting here thinking, this is really strange. Does he know that they're all following him? I was thinking that. And so I had another part in it, and I was like, I usually don't tell people this, but I can't make out what this means, but I did have a butterfly. I'm just telling you, God, it's crazy. I had a butterfly land on my hand, on my finger. Okay. It was very colorful, and it winked at me, and it smiled. Now, I can't tell you how that is. I don't know. And it sounds like, oh, right there, I'm completely, something's wrong, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that meant, because we don't have that here. Okay.
No.
And I don't know what that is all about, but we walked around, and then there was a big tree, and there was a rock there. He said, "You can stay a little bit longer, and then you have to go back." And so we sat under the tree, and he said I could ask him anything. We sat by the rock. He said, "We don't eat from this tree." And it looked like cherry blossoms with red grapes, not big red grapes, smaller red grapes. And I said, "Okay." I was thinking, okay, I wasn't thinking about
Don't really care. Yeah.
I wouldn't really care, but okay, good information. And so you're like, I know some people might be hearing this going, "Wow, you're being really disrespectful, smart ass to Jesus." But here's the thing. He knows everybody, their personality. Okay. And he communicates to them the way they're used to being communicated to. And he knows I have a lot of questions, and I just don't, you know, he's cool with that. You know what I mean? It's fine. And so he did. And I asked him things like electricity and how it worked and stuff like that. And then I was kind of bored with the stuff he was telling me. I was like, yeah, you know, because you get it. It was like a download. Like I just knew it. He would show me, and then it was a download. And I was like, eh. And then he said, well, let me tell you about how you manifest and how you create. He said, we create here, basically heaven, paradise, whatever you want to call it, Summerland, wherever it is, instantly. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. He said, but it takes longer on the earth plane. It takes longer. And he said, but that's why you need to be careful and mindful of what you're thinking, because you'll manifest it. And he said, but here it's quick. So I was more interested on like how quick,
what I could do there.
Yeah. Exactly. And so I said, can I try it? And he goes, yeah. So I thought of us being in a little boat, and we were in a little boat. We were together, and we were on this cute little stream. And then these 3 little fish came up to him, and then he picked one up out of the water, and he just talked to it. He goes, hey, and then he put it back down. He goes, that's how we fish here. And then he started telling me about our thoughts, our things. And I mean, some of the stuff, it seems simple, but we know it as what? Quantum physics. We talked about a little bit in the interview with you, you know, and he talked about like principles of wisdom. We walked around and talked, but I have to tell you this, we had a lot of fun. Like we went by the river, and we around the embankment, and he had like sandals on. He took them off, and I was just a kid, and I would play around and say, like kids do, you know, like watch me run and look at this. And then it was like, you know, then there was a little brook there, and I swam. I was there 3 days, but I don't know how long I was there. And I don't remember everything that's coming out in pieces, but I do remember that I felt so complete. It was such a oneness and a supernatural love. And it was like, and maybe because I was a kid, did I feel connected to everything? All I can say is I felt really at peace, and I felt like he had my back. Like I never really had anyone have my back. You know, I mean, from the beginning, I was like, my, family's trying to basically kill me in a lot of ways, other than the nail thing that was on me. But and I felt like that it was okay. And I felt complete there. I did not want to leave at all. And I did have a little kid body, and it did look glowy. Everything, the grass was super soft. Everything was just like a perfect day. And so when it came time to go back, he did tell me my mission. Okay. Basically to bring heaven on earth. And he told me a lot more. And I said, no. I said, no, this is too much work. This sounds like a lot of work. That's what I told him. And he thought that was funny. And he goes, well, it might be. And I was like, yeah, it's like a lot of work. I can't do all that. It's a lot of work. He goes, but you're not the only one. And I'm like, I don't know, because I already didn't trust people too much.
No, of course.
And he said, there'll be others. I was like, and I said, I don't know. He goes, look, I know who they are. I've assigned them. I already know there's others. Okay. They're going to do it. And I'm like, I don't know. So we actually went back and forth with this pattern for a while, because I was not in agreement with it. And then he was talking about how each of us, he wanted for people to understand that they're more than what they know, that they're part of this where we are, that there's that basically God, the divine creator, whatever, isn't all of us. And we're a lot more than that. He wants people to see that spark in them, and to see how beautiful they are, the way he sees them beautiful. And I'm like, and I'm thinking, okay, well, it's pretty falling down on earth. I don't know about this. So we went back and forth, and finally he convinced me, and I said, okay, I'll do my best. And so when I did go back, he said that I had, that, it's time to go back. And then I was back, but I wasn't following orders still. I did not go back in the body, because I knew it would hurt. So I started flying around the hospital, like helping people and like basically doing spiritual counseling with people and saying hey to people. And he didn't like that apparently. But so a spirit doctor showed up, and he said, his name was Tippin, Dr. Tippin. And he said, little girl, you have to go back in your body. I'm like, nope, it's going to hurt. I'm not going to do that. This is just fine, just like this. And so then Jesus showed up, and he said, I've prepared it for you. I guess he was saying it won't hurt. You know, he said, I prepared it for you. As soon as he touched my shoulder, I was back in, and then I saw everyone. At that point on, I was seeing spirit people at 3, but I was seeing everything. Then I was seeing spirits. I could see dark demon-like things crawling on walls. I mean, they're just, I don't know what they are. It's not good. I just think they're different. You know, there's a lot of different dimensions. There are a lot of different realms. And I'm not talking about heaven and hell. I'm talking about everything else in between and everything else and more. Okay. Things that, you know, who knows? I think that's just too literal. Okay. That's just a little too literal. Yeah. But there are different realms. Sure. Cause you know, there are, and not all of them are human. There's different things. And so I was able to see all of that. And then I kind of buried a lot of that for a long time. And then I think for a while, then 10, I had an NDE. I was at the pool at a summer vacation in Myrtle Beach with my family. And there was guys playing volleyball in the pool. And I was in between their legs. I'm like, apparently a 10-year-old. I'm a little pervert. I'm 10 years old, under 14-year-old boys. Like, yeah, I am. And I got stuck, and they didn't know I was down there. And so I couldn't breathe. And it looked like the water opened up, and it was like glowy and light. And I heard it looked like a really beautiful layered choir of angels. It was like, ah, like you'd imagine. I'm looking, ah. And I'm going, and I really remember going, crap, you got to be kidding. Not again. And so I did. And then the next thing I know, I'm like getting water, the lifeguard, and my mom's standing there with my little baby sister, and she goes, what'd you do now? So each one of these things, I think, tuned me up, because I don't train for that, or but I do reach the higher levels of channeling and all that. And I guess people need good messages, but I think that's what it just removed my filters every time. And then when I was 28, I had a reaction to one pill for menstrual migraines, and I was like, an alarm went off. I woke up in the middle of the night. I couldn't talk. I don't know why. My motor skills wouldn't work. I couldn't talk, and I couldn't get my body quite together. It was kind of like I woke up like Frankenstein. I just went, oh boy, like the alarms went off, and I went into the living room to turn on the TV, because I thought if I could follow what they're saying, that I would be okay. And I thought, well, I only had one pill. This is ridiculous. And then I started hearing that white noise sound, and I was like, oh, great. Oh, dear. Yeah, this can't be good. And then I started feeling very fearful, which I knew shortly after that is I wouldn't care. So I started, well, I don't know. I didn't know I was male or female. I didn't know what I was. I knew that I was. I didn't know I was male or female. I didn't know my name. That can't be good. I thought, this is like, I had like a sense of humor about it. Like, this can't be good, And so, yes, you can take your sense of humor in the afterlife, because I had a sense of humor, and I was going, this can't be good. And then I started seeing all the lines breaking down in the living room, like the furniture started turning into lines. I mean, the closest would be like the Matrix, but we didn't have the Matrix movies back then. And it started going in, because I was in my early 30s at this point, or was that 28 or 32? And so the lines everything was breaking down in lines. And then next thing, I think what it was is I was becoming more spirit. So I was just looking at it differently. And then next thing you know, I'm in the galaxy, and this is what it looks like. And I said, I want to see the nebula. Like, what? I don't know. And so I'm looking at the nebula and I'm going, wow, that is really beautiful. And I'm at the same time in my body, seeing my body, and I'm taking one finger, it was my index finger on my right side, and I'm poking myself back in my leg, going, this is ridiculous. This is not your time. This is one pill. And I did that till my consciousness came back in my body. So was it a near death? It was strange. I mean, it was definitely, I mean, I didn't go to the paradise states, but I was.
It sounded almost like a psychedelic experience.
Is it what, doppelganger?
Psychedelic.
Yeah, it was weird, but I was out there. I mean, I was gone. I literally heard the white silence. I was not in my body, but I was staring at it and controlling it, but I was like by location. It was very, very odd, but I was out. I mean, I wasn't just having I was literally gone. I was further than I was in the hospital. Let's put it that way. I was much further. And so it opened me up to more layers of understanding. I did have a friend that went to the Monroe Institute, and I told him about the lines. I didn't know what that was. He goes, that's one of their things at the Monroe Institute. I said, what do you mean? He goes, it's one of the stages is the lines. I'm like, really? This thing is real? So it's just another form of our consciousness. And it's what happened. So the after effects, was when I was 3. I started seeing spirit people, but there's more than that. I mean, knowing things, spirit people, knowing things in detail that I shouldn't know. I couldn't talk to people about that because it frightened my mom. And so I kind of grew up with a lot of secrets. I couldn't talk to my mom, or definitely my stepdad, the perpetrator. And I didn't know about these, near-death experiences, and they were surrounded by trauma. I mean, honestly, I wish my death. I did. I mean,
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
I mean,
not a very good life to have at that point, especially at such a young age.
Yeah, it's just not. And I was like, why did you do this to me? This sucks. I don't want to be here. And I'm like, and I said, you need to make something better happen because this sucks. So only thing that I can say is that when I did come back, and I suffered through 8 till I was 18. And then I felt like, woohoo, like I was broken out of prison. And then I, went off to college shortly after that. And then it was my grandparents that put me through college. And I approached them, even though my stepdad at this point had money. They said, we anticipated this. We've been saving. And I was like, because they knew his character. And they said, we've anticipated this. It was so heartwarming. They worked in their 70s to put me through school too. It was so
That's nice.
I mean, they were like angels.
That's what you need.
And so I still love them. And I think the mediumship, I saw them and whatever, but I personally think that, I mean, a lot of these things are probably our innate natural ability, and we've just probably forgotten how to tap into it. But when you have a strong love for someone or an animal, right? And you're like, I love them. I just love them so much. Well, there really isn't any time. You're gonna make that love connection. You're gonna, so it, as when I think that really opened up with the mediumship, I try to hide it. And the psychic stuff, hide it. And it was so, I guess I didn't do a very good job. I went off to college, and I actually read some lady that I knew in college a while back, and she's like, oh, you didn't hide it very well. I knew you were like that back then. I thought, God, I did a terrible job. But I really didn't want to use any of it. And then I had this big epiphany. I don't know if you call it that, spiritual, whatever. I was broken down at one point, and went into advertising and marketing, and went to college for that, and did that 25 years. And I had this lag. People never talk about this because it's kind of sad. But it's a reality. Hey, it's a part of it. Can happen to people, but I had this I'm not happy kind of thing. And I didn't really pray for a lot of years. I know it sounds bad to some people, but I didn't. And I finally had these talks with God, sometimes I would bring in Christ, and I was like, I don't like what I'm seeing in the world. I don't like this. Is this all this is in life? Just earning to just make stuff and buy stuff? This sucks. And so I was watching, I don't know why it was this, but it was like I was flipping the channel and I saw some war or something. It was, I don't know what it was at the time. And it just made me sit and start crying. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Why do we have this? And I remember just crying my eyes out going, I need a reason better than this to be here. See, you're not the only one. I'm a pain in the ass too. And, and I said, this is awful. And so I had God try to talk to me. It was God, because I just knew it was. I can't tell you how I know. And it was trying to talk to me. And then Jesus always has to explain things. Look, it's time for you to use your gifts. I was like, oh no, not going to do that. Nope. I don't want to be seen strange. Nope. And he's like, it's not about you. It's about you helping other people and seeing the greatness in them. It's time for you to use it. And I said, well, I don't want to be seen as a charlatan. He goes, then you won't. And I haven't. And so at that point on, I started looking at that possibility. I'd never even thought about it. It's the very least thing I wanted to look at. And then that's when I started getting training in the British style of mediumship from the Omega Institute. And then I'd fly to New Jersey all the time when they have British mediums. And because I thought, well, either if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to do it because people, they need evidence and I need evidence, I need to know this is real. I can't, I need to take it at the highest quality level. And I still believe the British style of evidential mediumship is it. And so I went to Omega and tried that, and I did very well. I didn't plan on it. I could have gone either way. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I was just like, this is a joke, really? But I felt like I should. I'm like, oh, I did it. I got signs all weekend. And then I can't, and then I just start, I followed this path, and it's been a spiritual, journey ever since then, including having the podcast and learning so much from there, to having starseed people on and authors, and now I'm seeing UFOs. I mean, this is just like has been a wild ride.
It's opened you up to a lot more than you thought it would to begin with.
It is, but the thing that makes me look, even if I can just have a slice of happiness somewhere, is to know there's other people like me that are questioning, why are we here? What can I do to make a difference? There's definitely got to be something more than just existing and paying the bills, and being involved with the afterlife community, such as yourself and others, makes me feel validated, and I think this is the people that Jesus was talking about, quite honestly. He said, there'll be others. And I kept looking like, yeah, right. Where are they? But, all in due time, I think it was these kinds of people that are putting it out there and making people question, because so many people are still asleep. I think we're so much more than what we even know.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's, I think the Western way of looking at the world is very good to some degree, but very limited when it comes to this kind of subject.
It is. And I always would say these were my prayers, Darren, when I started praying. Okay, look, God, okay, look, this, no offense, but there's some mean people here. It's difficult. I need some answers. I need to know the truth. I just need to know. Okay. I'm just going to level with you. That's how I would, and I kind of still do in a way, but I would be very honest, genuine, and I would say, this is what I need. But I think each of us need to say, what does my soul need on this journey right now? What do I need? And what I need is not what someone else needs. It may be too much. And I think I've become scary to some people that I've known in life in my family, because my mom said about a month ago, she goes, I always knew you were a different child. I went, how so? And she's like, well, I just never knew how strange you were till you started your podcast and the topics you talk about. And I went, and so I made a joke of it. I said, really, you should have figured that out, that I was. And I said, look, I always tell people I'm much stranger than I look. So
not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, here's the thing. If we were all truly ourselves, and like I said, we talked on, my channel with you, with your, with the time when I interviewed you, which was great. But that if we stop labeling ourselves and stop trying to fit into social, status, regulations, whatever it is, and just followed our heart, and that would lead us to the answers that we need. And I do a lot of reading. I usually have spirit tell me, oh, read that book, do that one there, do that. And I'll go, that one, really? Sometimes I'm not even interested. Really? Sacred geometry? Yeah, we want you to do that. Okay, all right, I'll go look at it. And that'll lead to something else. So this quest hasn't stopped for me. And what I feel like now is really not, it's always our own journey, but I feel like that it's a movement of quite a few people that are trying to further mankind, to fill in the gaps and with answers, and at the very least, to expand our awarenesses as we know it. And I feel like it's somehow in this web of this movement. So I do feel like that it is here. I do feel like there are others, and it may not be the same as mine, but it's similar.
Great. Okay, well, I'm just conscious of the time. She said you need to be done by past, and that's 5 minutes till that now. So I think it'd be better if we leave this one here. I've never known someone to have 6 near-death experiences before, so that is a lot to deal with, especially at such a young age. That must have really turned your world upside down.
It did. I believe this is God won't put you through anything that you can't handle. And say, God, I think we sort of choose. Do we know what it's going to be? Not really, but apparently, I could handle it. Hey, bonus. I mean, I have all these really cool, like superhero gifts and remote viewing, channeling different religions that I don't even know these people, and then I look them up. I'm like, oh my God, they're real. I think that's so cool. So, I get all these, these little perks. I mean, I do get, there's a trade-off, and do I make a lot? No. Do I fit in with everyday society? Probably not. But am I having the time of my life, and am I on my path? Yes.
Good. And that's what's most important generally.
I think so. And also meeting you, and because I feel like that, we really are, so much of this world you feel alone, but when I meet people like you, I realize, I'm not alone.
Quite right. And there's a lot more people than you'd realize out there dealing with this sort of thing and learning.
Exactly. So, and the other thing is, why would I go through so much suffering and pain? Well, you know what? That's part of being human. It sort of sucks. Everybody's got their own little whatever, but it makes me have compassion to others. And when they tell me you don't understand, I'm like, yeah, I do. I really do. But this is the way I look at it. I refuse to be a victim, because I have just enough piss and vinegar in me to go, I'm not having it. I get to choose how I live this life, and I'm not going to be dictated by what someone did to me. And I'm going to choose, I'm the captain of this ship. And even if the ship sinks, I'm in charge, and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it my way. And I'm not going to let anyone that traumatize me have an effect on me. And I feel sorry for them. How miserable a person can you be to do that to your child? I mean, you got to be pretty broken, messed up person to do that.
In a bad place. Yeah.
You got to be in a bad place. Yeah. So I look at it a little bit differently. And again, this did not happen. happened overnight. This whole, if you want to call it forgiveness, a lot of anger, had a lot of anger issues. Martial arts really helped. Because, you know, you do need a way of working through that.